But we've got a fantastic guest, someone whose opinion we do value very much so.
Absolutely.
In these crazy times that we are living at the moment. At the moment, Scotland is feeling the brunt of the craziness, and we're looking forward to speaking to Godfrey regarding that.
Yeah.
But I know we have to be careful. So let's waste no more time. Let's bring in Godfrey Bloom. Godfrey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and it's great to be on your show again, and lovely to see you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure having you on. Every time we mention the people that we've got you on the show, they all get very excited. So it's very much looking forward to hearing what you have to say. And I know you have to be careful with what's going on in Scotland, but your views, as we've seen so far, Scots, well, more importantly, Humza Yousaf has decided that he's going to take even more freedoms away from people with these new hate speech laws that have come into play now from yesterday.
From yesterday, April Fool's Day.
Yes, yeah, of all days. So I'd be interested, first of all, to see what your overall opinion is on these laws that have come into place in Scotland.
Well, I find them particularly disappointing. I'm 20% jock, although I try and hide it, of the Clan Bruce. So I think I have a little bit of Scottish royal blood. But of course, if we look at our history books, we see, do we not, what a wonderful place Scotland was and how it punched above its weight historically through the wonderful period of the Enlightenment. We've seen all those great Scottish thinkers, philosophers, engineers, doctors, and Scotland has punched far above its weight as a small nation. I know it had the catalyst of the British Empire, which had plenty of jobs for them and their expertise. But of course, Voltaire, as you will know, went to Scotland because of that brilliance of free speech. It was he came from the land of religious oppression, and he wondered in it and wrote about it. What a wonderful thing free speech was, and how enlightened Scotland was and the Scottish thinkers of that period. And of course, the Protestant work ethic that Scotland's had, the standard of education, which is significantly higher than for many, many decades, or centuries even, much higher perhaps than anywhere else in the world, and I include England. This is extraordinary how a nation that I love can have touched rock bottom with this man in charge, who I haven't met. Correct me if I'm wrong, he doesn't look Scottish to me, but what do I know?
Yeah, no, he absolutely is not, is he? And it seems to be taking the same road as every other leader in the United Kingdom, where they are of separate origin. Yeah. And we know that Humza Yousaf, I won't play the video again now because everybody's seen it, where he makes that long list how everybody in certain senior positions are white, and he seems to take great a gripe to that, doesn't he?
He absolutely does. And you're quite right, Godfrey. Scotland, everybody, every part of the United Kingdom has punched way above its weight because we are united, and that I think is something that people like to, hate. Actually, the separatists hate it because of that. But you're right. The engineers, the Scottish engineers, are everywhere in the world. Where you go, you can see, buildings with the engineer's name at the bottom, and usually it's from, they're Scottish. So yeah, the Humza Yousaf is is it deflection that they're trying to use? Because of course you mentioned the education system, and that's now starting to go down, unless you look at the public school stuff. But that's going down in the league tables as well, isn't it? It's following Wales. Wales is at the bottom.
I know it's a tragedy, and it's almost inexplicable. It cannot be in anybody's interest to degrade your educational system, but of course it's It's virtually global. I mean, North America, the educational system's degraded. It's degraded in Great Britain almost totally. And I have lectured at many schools over the years. And I can tell you now that the public schools are just about as bad. And some of the great public schools have gone woke. I was at my grandfather's school a few months ago, Price Hospital. He was an Old Blue, an extremely prestigious school, which was founded basically for people of limited wealth. A great public school, but you know, it was limited wealth. So perhaps poor parsons or impoverished doctors or artisans, even whatever. Totally and utterly degraded in every way. Very, very sad to see it. But it's the same in other schools. It's terribly woke. You know, you think they would not get stuck into this. State schools have to do this because teachers at state schools have to dance to the tune of the government and wokery. Otherwise, they're down the road. But you wouldn't expect to be paying £7,000 a term to get that kind of crap pumped into your children, would you? And more of my young friends, I'm very blessed. I have a lot of younger friends for an old geezer. And they're taking their kids out and doing home education and getting on very well. But if you see some of the stuff, and of course, when I was down in Newport last year, we saw some of the material that would be given to very young children, which would be regarded as pornography in the normal way. Kids of 11, that's actually happening in England and quite locally in York. Bishop Holgate School in particular, which I just happen to be, it's a close school and I know something about the situation. Yeah. It's really very, very sad and disgusting. And the only thing I can recommend to people watching your channel, if you can, and it's not easy, take your kids out. Take your children out before they become degraded as the system wants them to be.
Yeah. It is scandalous that an old fuddy-duddy like me, when we want to debate, we can have an argument and we can have a pint at the end of it, and I learn something from you and you learn something from me. But in schools now, that debating society and that free thinking and that how can I put it?
The encouragement to critically think, question.
The encouragement has gone. You're taught A and B, and that's it. You're not taught that. Well, you mentioned Voltaire, but others. That other people thought different things, and you should appraise all of it and come to your own conclusion and then write an essay about your conclusion. None of that seems to happen now, Godfrey.
Dissent is not allowed. I might have mentioned it last time I was on the show, but I read a biography of Goebbels a few months ago, The Evil Genius on Propaganda. Yeah. But he made a number of points which are as valid today.
Yes.
And one is that you have to appeal to emotion. Fact is a waste of time. If somebody is emotive about something, you won't get anywhere with fact. Give you an example, the Ukraine war. Most people believe that Putin just woke up one morning and invaded the Ukraine because he was pissed or bored. That is, your 85% of people think that, especially when they've read the Daily Express and they're downwind of a few sherbets. And that's what they think. And it's emotion. It's built all on emotion. And the other thing that Goebbels was sound about, dissent is not allowed. You cannot have an exchange of ideas because otherwise people would go down to the pub and say, hey, did you see that bloke the other night on TV, that Godfrey Bloom? We said, actually, the conflict started in 2014 with the assault by the Western Ukraine on the Eastern Donbass. And they didn't know that. So you can't have dissent. They've got to think along the same lines. So it's got to be emotional. And I have friends who very highly educated friends, Cambridge University, all sorts of things, will not accept this. They will not accept this. And it's the same with compulsory medication. They simply will not join the dots. I've had several friends who have suffered quite badly from this medication who don't join the dots. So they've now been perfectly healthy all their lives, not much beyond 50, but they're surprised they're having cardiac problems, but they won't join the dots. They've had all their bits and pieces, but they just don't get it. They can't. It's cognitive dissonance in spades. I mean, who would have thought? Who would have thought that we would have a leader of the opposition in Keir Starmer, when asked what a woman was, didn't answer? He wanted notice of the question. I bloody well know what a woman is, and I'll tell you now. A woman is a human being who would sooner spend money on a stair carpet than beer. That's a woman. Not difficult, is it?
And I've said for quite a while, it's amazed me that the question that's been throwing off party leaders all over the place, all over the Western world, is what is a woman? I had Carolyn Harris on my Twitter feed the other day, and she said something along the lines of how women have been treated so poorly over something. I can't remember what it was. She watched the documentary, and I just asked her, Carolyn, what's a woman? What is a woman? Question mark. Because she's not going to be able to answer that.
No, she's not going to be able to answer.
Because the party won't allow her to give the honest answer. And I think this comes down to now Rishi Sunak saying regarding the Scottish hate laws that nobody should be criminalised for stating biological fact. And I think that's where we're heading now, where you can actually get in trouble for speaking the truth. And I think we're seeing that start in Scotland. But
it's taken Sunak months and months and months, because the other person that they're trying to push forward is Mordaunt. And she, as a reservist in the Royal Navy, she's had several drafts of what a woman is, and she wasn't right with it. And so even she doesn't know what a woman is, and she's a woman.
Just let me put that in, which Jermaine, because you may or may not know this. Her lieutenancy in the Royal Naval Reserve was an honorary thing. She's not passed a single exam. She hasn't done a thing to get it. They just gave her a uniform in order to try and raise the profile of the Royal Naval Reserve. So she's fake. But I think everything about her is fake.
Well. I knew that I was associated for many years with the Air Cadet organisation, and Carol Vorderman. She was given a honorary group captaincy, and she wore, a group captain's uniform. But I didn't know that it extended to the Royal Navy. I did not know that. So. Oh
yes, it does. And I was thinking, because I never made it above major, I was thinking of identifying as a field marshal. I thought I might go down to Geeves and Hawkes and get myself measured up for a field marshal's and get some chocolate medals. Or perhaps see if I could wangle it like the king has. My mother's dead now, but get all those medals given to you by your parents. That's a good one too, isn't it, really?
Well, of course, was it Idi Amin that gave himself the Victoria Cross? Yes.
You can't help but admire the bloke, really, can you?
This is stretching my memory now. I think he did reach to be a corporal, didn't he? Was it in Kenya?
He actually was in the King's African Rifles and made sergeant.
Oh, right.
And I actually soldiered with a training major who served with him in Uganda. And I said, how did you sort of let all this happen? He said, well, actually, he was captain of the boxing team and all the rest of it. And we thought he was a jolly good chap. And it was only when we scarpered and we left Uganda and the rest of Africa to themselves that he suddenly turned into the sort of chap that keeps his opponents' heads in the fridge. I was against that kind of thing really at the beginning, but the more I think about it, Wouldn't you like to open the fridge and see Sunak's head in it? I know I would.
Along with Starmer, maybe, yeah.
Oh dear me, brilliant. So we've got Sunak, who's WEF, Mordaunt, who's WEF, Hamza, who's WEF, Vaughan Gethin, who's black because he says he is, and WEF. Where are we going with all this, Godfrey?
Well, I've always said, I did somebody else's channel the other day, and I'll make the point again. I might have made it on your show as well. We have to get away from the label, the party label system of government. It should be illegal at election time to stand on a platform with either a red rosette or a blue rosette. So people vote red or blue. It's the same in the United States. And you and I both know, if you go into one of the Labour constituencies in South Wales, you could pin a red label to a huge steaming dog turd and people would vote for it, wouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, if you went up to, North Pembrokeshire or something, you could do the same thing with a blue label.
Yeah.
Now, what you should have is a system where at an election, you should go onto the platform and say, my name's Taffy Evans, and I believe in the following things. Vote for me. And people say, he seems a good bloke, and we'll vote for him, or we don't think he's a good bloke, and we won't vote for him. But when it's blue or red, you always end up with this situation where people vote blue because they can't stand the red guy, or red because they can't stand the blue guy.
Yeah.
And every now and again, it gets really weird when you get somebody like Edward Heath against Harold Wilson, where nobody can stand either of the buggers. And this goes on. So people, who would vote for any of these people if they didn't have a label? You'd laugh them off the plinth.
Yeah.
Well,
but if somebody got on the stage and said to you, I believe in less regulation, much less taxation, and this kind of thing, and much less immigration, no immigration at all, then they get voted in. But we don't get that. We get red or blue. And everybody will say to you at the next election, oh, God, if we don't vote Conservative, it'll be even worse if we get Starmer in. And I live in a Conservative constituency. And, of course, my response to that is, how the hell could it be worse than what we've got? How can it conceivably be worse than the Muppets that are governing us at the moment? So we'll just get Starmer, who's another monster Muppet. What we really want is a hung parliament.
Yeah.
So they can't do anything.
They can't do anything, yeah.
Yeah, they just can't do anything.
Yeah.
I'd prefer a real hung parliament, all 560 of them.
Well, then, of course, to pick up on your English grammar, we need a hanged parliament.
Yeah, because there isn't much hope, is there? I can't see there being much hope, because even, you've got people like Reform now who are, being picked as the alternative. However, you're seeing them, stand down candidates on the say-so of hope not hate, or hate not hope. So are they even an actual real alternative, would you say? Are they just a protest group?
Yeah, they're fake, aren't they? It's a sort of anything but the Conservative Party. Reform. Oh, I'm not a Conservative. I'm your Reform candidate. I'm not a Conservative. Yes, what else do you stand for? Well, not a lot, really, but I'm not a Conservative.
Yeah.
So vote for me. That's not good enough, isn't it? I mean, let's just take their immigration policy. Just for once. Why aren't they saying, if you vote Reform and we get into government, we will mobilise the Royal Navy to tow the boats back? Simple. A one-liner, isn't it? And then they say, we'd halve foreign aid. It's £1 billion a bloody month.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of it entirely. Let's do the potholes first, shall we? Not halve it. It's so namby-pamby. And then when Tice, the next time we saw that dreadful picture of Tice in the Ukraine, looking like he'd been snorting something all afternoon, that maniacal sort of look. So instead of saying no more billions of pounds to a lost cause in the Ukraine, he's still, it's nowhere. These people are nowhere people. Yeah. So it's fake. I'm sorry it's fake, because if ever there was a if ever there was a space now for a new radical party, but they're not radical.
No.
They're as radical as Julia Hartley-Brewer, who I think is desperate to be a Conservative Party MP. But I mean, these people are fake. They're all fake. They annoy me.
Yeah. So you've touched on it twice, so we might as well get on to it. What's your summation of World War III? I mean, Ukraine.
Well, I think, you know, since the very beginning, in fact, I wrote an article for Going Postal, it's still on my website, in 2016, warning of the dangers of the Ukraine and getting involved in the Ukraine, which of course is one of the most corrupt countries in the world.
Yeah.
And it was bubbled as being one of the most corrupt countries in the world by the Guardian newspaper, no less. My favorite newspaper, and I'm sure it's your favorite newspaper.
Oh, yeah.
This is in 2021. Now, of course, the war should never have started. It's a CIA Washington neocon war, a proxy war to destabilize and cause regime change in Russia.
Yeah.
That went well, didn't it? And they thought they could weaken the Russian Federation. I've said this a number of times at the Staff College just after the war in Camberley, when Field Marshal Montgomery was a speaker. One of the speakers, actually, one of the audience, one of the students said, "Can you give us one really good military tip, just a sort of one-liner, Field Marshal, you know, before you depart?" And he said, "Yes, I'll give you a good one-liner." He said, "Never march on Moscow. Fighting Moscow on their own doorstep could only end in disaster." Now, of course, with combat experience, and the soldiers watching this, and I know you have some ex-soldiers, there is no substitute for combat experience.
No.
Their military logistics system is up and running. Their war machinery is up and running. They can put 1 million men in the field and they have 1 million reserves.
Yeah.
What's happened is we've now ensured the Russian Federation is the most powerful military power on the planet. Now, that wasn't the ambition, was it, really? But that's exactly what's happened. And we've strengthened their economy. And in that blowing up of the pipeline, I wonder who blew it up.
Yeah.
You know, another one of life's great mysteries, isn't it? But of course, it's completely destroyed the German economy. The German economy is going down the lavatory.
Yeah.
And because the Germans don't even know it. They're too stupid. It's a shame, really, because they make some lovely cars, but when it comes to actually understanding what's going on, or a sense of humour,
yeah,
they're a bit behind the 8 ball, aren't they? So they've actually been shafted by the Americans, as Americans shaft everybody.
Yes.
There's hardly a country on the planet hasn't been shafted by the Yanks.
Yeah.
Because, and I've been to Washington many times, and I'm not anti-American.
No.
I've got lots and lots of really good friends in America. I've visited 38 states. We've got 38 fridge magnets, which proves it, because my wife collects them. But as a fake democratic power in Washington, they're probably the most stupid people I've ever met. And indeed, most of my American friends agree with me.
Yeah.
So if you go to the Heritage or the Brookings Institute or the US State Department, as I have done in Washington and met these people, they are mind-bogglingly stupid.
Yeah.
But they clean cut, they've got Brooks Brothers shirts, Brooks Brothers suits,
yeah,
and they're very articulate, but they are just plain stupid.
Yeah.
Which is why they crash all over the world all the time, and they haven't won a war since 1945. You'd think they'd give it up, wouldn't you? War isn't for them. Let's try something else. They make fantastic musicals, pre-war musicals and post-war musicals. Seven Bride for Seven Brothers, Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers. America's got a lot going for it, but warfare isn't their thing.
No. Actually, one of my first days at NATO and SHAPE was they may speak English, but they are not our friends. And I was told that from day one. Yeah. And their psyops was always, oh, don't worry about the Brits. they will have explored every other option before they get to the right one.
Yeah.
But the right one was always what the Americans wanted. Why do you think? Still talking about Ukraine, really. Why do you think Tice so belatedly went to visit it when it's clear that Ukraine is a lost cause?
I think it's because he also is incredibly stupid. I mean, that was when there was a by-election, wasn't it, in Clacton or somewhere? I can't remember. His place was on the stump at the by-election.
Yeah.
What was he doing out in the Ukraine? Unless he was after a bit of crumpet, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
I think probably $30 or $40 in Kiev in a bar goes quite a long way, if you get my drift.
Right. And he's got a few dollars, haven't he, from his subscription?
Yeah, because of course the polls, all the polls, are all indicating that reform is.
And this leads questions, I think, because they're getting so much positive publicity from the likes of the BBC. They're not getting questioned. They don't get much aggro from the groups like Hope Not Hate. So I think they've got a bit of a pass. But go on, carry on.
Yeah, no, that was it. But the by-elections that they've fought so far, they've, one man and a dog could have won, and they've been running full campaigns at these by-elections. And of course, next week, or is it this week? This week there's the Blackpool by-election, and again they're riding 2 points ahead of the Conservatives. But it doesn't reflect that when it's actually in the ballot box, does it?
No, it's because they don't have a specific one-line campaign tagline. Now, UKIP was very successful under proportional representation in the early days because it was perfectly straightforward. It was we need to leave the EU. That's it, full stop.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
So, of course, that worked extremely well. But it doesn't work so well in trying to form a fake representative democracy in elections or by-elections. But people can let off steam in a by-election. They should be winning by-elections. But if they came out just with one, I could help them. If they brought me in, I could actually get them winning a few seats.
No, I want you to help me. Sod them.
Well, basically, I'm convinced that the one-liner which would get everybody on board between traditional Labour supporters. Don't forget, UKIP got traditional Labour supporters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Patriotic people.
Yeah.
In the main, they were patriots. Conservative with a small c. Picture of Her Majesty on the wall. I know these guys. I soldiered with these guys.
Yeah.
So I know what makes them tick. So these are the guys you've got to get into the ballot box, and you will get that with some easy one-liners. So one is mobilise the Royal Navy and tow the boats back. That's number one.
You write the names down?
Have a flat tax policy, so nobody pays any income tax until you get to 30,000 a year, and then it's a flat 15%.
Yeah.
So, things that are going to be, people are going to say, God, that's a good idea. And then, of course, people, if you watch on my website, you'll see me completely and utterly destroy Andrew Neil.
Yeah.
When he said, when are you going to do that? How could you do this? And I rattled off I think it was under 30 seconds, how we could save £1 trillion a year.
Yeah.
In under 30 seconds, in order that we could meet these commitments to ordinary people reducing their tax.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I said, of course, which I just see that people are beginning to talk about, is that the cost of public sector index-linked pensions is now 1.26 trillion. Or is it 2 trillion? How these numbers go? Now, I've been saying this for years. I live in a tiny village, only 120 souls all told, but I can actually see from my room here 6 retired civil servants or teachers whose pensions would amount, if you bought them from the Prudential, to in the region of something like 12 million. That's just looking out of my window.
Yeah.
We can't afford this. We can't afford all these people getting their automatic increases. There were some school teachers in the town who retired 10 years ago, and they've got their 8% a year or whatever it is. They're now earning miles more than they earned when they were school teachers. And of course, what's happening is my rates are going up because that's where the money came. We keep the potholes aren't going. We're not getting any services. I might as well pay these bastards straight. I might walk across the road now, give them my money, because that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, and I think it is a massive problem that we've got is the mismanagement of money. If there was any business that was mismanaging money this way, well, you'd think they'd probably be in prison for it, because there would have to be some kind of dodginess going on for them to be this bad. But no, in government, the answer is NHS is doing poor, throw more money. Or the doctors want more money, give them more money. They kowtow to every sort of institution like that, when in reality, how many people could you lose from the NHS that would make zero difference whatsoever?
Quite a lot.
Hundreds of thousands, probably.
Yeah. Well, it's the largest employer in Europe. But nobody ever gets sacked, Godfrey. Nobody ever gets sacked. They get promoted or they get sidelined, but they never get sacked. Well, I'm sure that you would cut a scythe through the civil service tomorrow.
Well, I did a check on this. I think there's something like about 6 million people working in the public sector in some form, and of course there'll be another 12 million getting their index-linked pensions. And the National Health, in particular, if you look at it, they have 1.8 billion pounds a year that goes into the pot. They have, I think it's 1.3 million employees, half of whom have no medical qualification whatsoever. No. So there are 600,000 people in the NHS who aren't doctors, nurses, radiographers, physiotherapists, or anything else. They float about. Now, maybe you need a receptionist, and here and there, of course you do, or one or two bits and pieces. I know that. I understand that. But the question is, what do 600,000 of the buggers actually do?
Yeah.
And you would think, as a political question, let's look at the BBC for just a second. Laura Cheeseburger is on £300,000 a bloody year as a political correspondent. You would have imagined she might have asked the Minister for Health that question. There is 600,000. Where does it go? Where's the procurement game? What's going on in the NHS? Where are the doctors when you want to see your GP? He's off playing golf, which is probably sponsored by Pfizer. A Pfizer day out. They're not there. And of course, if they go on this rate, of course they won't have any patients because we'll all be dead.
Yeah.
And they'll have killed us.
But patients are a side issue, though, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, I worked in the NHS. I was a facilities manager and procurement, and I cut in my trust from 96 buildings to 46 buildings without the loss of service. And the replication that was across the services was unbelievable. And there was another trust that was also in the area, which was a mental health trust. And so you had one building next to another building, and both of them operating at 50%, and two receptions. And it just, if this was private business, you'd be able to cut, and you still wouldn't get to the bottom of it, because of course they like empty buildings on their stats.
Well, my sister worked at Norwich Infirmary. She was on the procurement side as well, middle management, I suppose you'd have called her. And she said, I could buy mattresses online at half the price that the NHS were paying for them. And she said, when she suggested stuff like that, or there were people swinging the lead, not turning up for weeks on end, chucking a long-term sickie, and she was trying to do something about it, and they sacked her. They sacked her. They got rid of her. Because if you're in the NHS and you're telling the truth, like anything, they're going to kick you out, unless you are, of course, a diversity officer, or a net zero officer, or a transgender, whatever it happens to be. And all the so on and so forth. The whole thing's bullshit. Now, when I was working in France, They have a national health system.
Yeah.
Far better than ours.
Yeah.
Far better than ours. I'll give you an example. If you go in and get an X-ray for your knee, had a dodgy knee or something, and I was out there, I went in, I got the X-ray. I paid 30 euros for it or whatever it was, something like that. It wasn't a lot. They gave it to me. It's mine. I just paid for it, and it went in my briefcase. So I went to see the expert, the surgeon dude. I gave it to him, and he looked at it and gave me whatever I needed to do. I paid him 100 euros and buggered off. It's all perfectly straightforward. They don't have any of these freeloaders, and that has to be run like a real business. And the German system's even more efficient, because the German system is based on what we used to have in this country, which was a mutualized system, or even what Beveridge was aiming at. When you paid your weekly stamp, that was your stamp, and that entitled you to healthcare and a modest pension. That was your stamp. And that's what the mutual societies did in the 1700s, the 1800s, and the building societies. They were mutual for working people who came together to look after themselves. Welfare was never, the idea with welfare with Beveridge was never a lifestyle choice.
No.
And it certainly wasn't a lifestyle choice for half of bloody Africa.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going on? They just turn up.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
Dan knows this because he used to work for an airline.
Yeah, I used to work. I would have been booted from there, but Virgin Atlantic. And obviously, you can imagine, I was made redundant at the start of the pandemic, lockdowns and all that. We were, loads of people were let go. But it was, you'd speak to people from Lagos, Nigeria, and they'd be booking flights to head over to the UK to have their baby because it's cheaper to buy their flights and to come over and use our NHS, get their whatever they need, and then they fly back. And they're given permissions to fly in the third trimester by the doctors over there because it eases their NHS or their health service as well. But this was standard practice. You'd be taking medical forms from doctors all the time that are saying that this person's got permission to fly because she's coming over to have her baby. And it was standard practice. But
but of course, we've got to get back, because there are two things, really, the great protection for ordinary folk like us. Two things. One is the protection of law. The principles of English law should be protecting us.
Mm.
And the other thing, of course, is a free press.
Yeah.
We don't have a free press.
No, we don't.
It's gone, long gone. So the BBC,
it went with Julian Assange,
broadcasting,
didn't it, Godfrey? It went with Julian Assange.
yes. You would have thought every journalist would be outside demanding his release. But if you're Laura Cheeseburger on 300,000 a year, you're not going to rock the boat, are you?
No.
I mean, I tell you what, I'd do a lot less boat rocking if somebody landed me £300,000 a year. You wouldn't believe I'd put my head up Sunak's arse piece for £300,000 a year, which is what all these people do.
Yeah, and we know, just in Wales alone, that there's no such thing as a free press just through the treatment that we receive. We've got registered bona fide media passes. They're good enough for Downing Street, but not good enough for the South Wales Police. But we've done research into the local media around here, Nation Scumry more specifically, and we find that they're getting £80,000 worth of Welsh government funding. And are they going to start printing articles against the Welsh government when they're getting the vast majority of their funding from the Welsh government? It's so controlled, and it's very dangerous that we've got political media.
Absolutely.
Because, like you said, it's important that people see all sides. And when we saw what happened with Ukraine and Russia, the instant removal of RT from all of our televisions, all of our internet, all of our laptops, that to me was, that sent a chilling message across, but nobody picks up on it. Everyone thinks, oh, well, it's Russia and you got to go. That's where people are.
It's unbelievable. So nobody could hear Putin's appeals for rationality and a peaceful solution.
Yeah.
And when it came, that could have come onto the table. It could have come in to people's drawing rooms when they watched the TV, and then Boris flew out there and spiked the whole thing.
Yeah.
Boris is a war criminal.
Yes.
Since he did that, I would argue there's probably something like 250,000 dead young Ukrainian soldiers,
Yeah.
which didn't need to die.
Yeah.
He spiked it. And of course, what will happen, and I've had Colonel McGregor on my channel a couple of times as well, you probably know, top bloke. He said, what will happen, of course, what always happens with the Americans, when it's all over, and I think it'll be all over by September, all that'll happen is the Americans will just slide away like a thief in the night and go to the next war and the next place that they want to cause trouble. So it never moves forward. I mean, the trouble is, I think I've said this before on your show, in order to get to the top in politics, doesn't matter whether you're Labour, Conservative, or whoever you may be, you simply have to be a sociopath. You really have to be a sociopath. And I really believe that because I've been in the game for 10 years and I've met these people. They are sociopaths, which is why Boris Johnson won't lose a minute's sleep for that. I mean, if we'd done something like that, we'd be in bits, wouldn't we? We'd be going, oh my God, what have I done? You know, what have I done? I've killed hundreds of thousands of young men and there was a peace on the table. He doesn't think like that because he's not normal.
Yeah.
But then if you look at Boris Johnson's face or Starmer or Sunak, do they strike you as normal?
No.
Not at all.
Absolutely not.
Not at all.
Cardboard cutouts.
Actually, Johnson's father is as bad because he never ever says, oh, Boris should have done this or Boris shouldn't have done that. He just totally supports his son. And some people would say rightly so, but not when it comes to the deaths of probably, 750,000 Ukraine and Russian soldiers?
It's absolutely scandalous. And nobody's talking about it. It was only when Tucker Carlson went to Russia, but really people started to go, is that what happened? You know, back in April in 2022. Yes, that's what happened. And most people say, oh, I didn't know that. Because it wasn't in the Daily Bloody Express, was it?
No. When you see people wearing the yellow and the blue, and you say, oh, what are you wearing that for? Oh, I'm supporting Ukraine. And you say, why? They look shocked. When I was in Brecon at the weekend, and the market in Brecon, it had, as you walked into the market, it had a Ukraine flag hanging, and then every window, it had a printout of a Ukraine flag on every window. And you went to the market stallholders and said, oh, something happening. Why is the flag flying? None of them had a clue. But it's the same people that bang the pots at 6:30 on a Thursday because Boris said, let's clap for the NHS.
Well, this is the problem, you see. Quite what we do about it, I don't know. I always assume if I see a Ukrainian flag anywhere in a garden or wherever it happens to be, I always assume that they don't know anything about the conflict at all.
No.
It's a golden rule because we Brits, it's like a football team, isn't it, really? I mean, how many people in England who live in the south of England or Cornwall are big Manchester United supporters?
Yeah.
Across the way. They've never been to Manchester.
They've
never been there. But they're big Man United, you know. They've got I've got a nephew. I've got hundreds of nephews. He's probably grown out of it by now. But a big Man United sticker in his bedroom, and all the rest of it. Yeah, he'd never left Norwich.
It's funny because when I used to go down, the Swansea City is who obviously I used to support before politics ruined football for me. But when Man United were down, everybody used to sing to them, you only live round the corner, because that's exactly right. You know, they've never been to Manchester. They don't realise that, oh, hang on, you know, there's a local team here that we should be supporting. No, they're just all for Man United.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely right.
And you won't find an Englishman in the team.
No, no. Well, you won't find an Englishman in most Premier League teams these days.
Well, I gather that's also true, but the oval ball is my game, of course, which you chaps used to be pretty good at. You've gone down the lav, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah, certainly have.
Well, rugby league is more my game anyway. With that shaped ball, I much prefer rugby league, which you should as well, being from up north.
Rugby league, yes.
Yeah.
We've got some news for you as well, Godders, because if you don't come down to Llanelli, well, we're coming up to York.
Ah.
I'll be at my club.
Yes, we're coming up to York in August, is it?
August,
yes. Ben Walker is getting hitched, so he's having a stag up there. So we could be closer than you think.
Oh, well, don't forget that. Don't forget my wife's holiday cottages.
Yeah.
Oh, you could get on the train into York, get shit-faced, and then get back on the train. If you don't have to get off the train halfway to do a tiddle, you'll be all right.
Brilliant. But the only thing I wanted to touch on then, lastly, to finish this off, is you said just there, I don't know what the answer is, and I think everybody is in that situation right now because the Boris Johnson thing that only came out to a lot of people when that interview with Tucker Carlson went out. How many people actually saw that? We don't know. Is it probably just us lot who is watching that? Are the general public actually tuning in to watch it? But I know you've already answered the question where you don't know where we go, but where do we go? What is, how do we get back to where we need to be with politics, with the media, with the police and things like that?
There's a number of steps, I think, simple steps. It's always very easy to sort of talk about sort of fairly esoteric kind of things, but I think the doing thing is, first of all, everybody must stop their banker's order to the BBC. That's something you can do very simply day one.
Yeah.
You can send a message to the corrupt state broadcasting authority, which don't inform us as per their charter. All right. They're in breach of their charter, don't pay them. That's the first thing you can do. Then when it comes to any form of election, vote for an independent. Don't vote for one of the main party rosettes. Vote for an independent. So if you've got somebody who's a genuine independent, even if he's barking bloody mad, and he probably will be, it's a better bet than the idiot with the rosette who is also barking mad.
Yeah.
So that's a couple of little things that you can do. And if it is at all possible, it's very difficult, I know, but you've got to take your kids out of the state education system. So if you can do homeschooling, get together with other parents with kids of the same age and make it work. You might not believe it, but it's much easier than you might imagine it is.
Yeah.
So there's some doing things. There's some doing things that you can start doing.
Brilliant, Godders. Always good, and a pleasure to have you on the program once again. And we'll have to keep it regular this time.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We look forward to having you back on in the future.
Always a pleasure. You never know, I might bump into you in New York.
Excellent. Well, Stan will be hunting you down anyway. So, Godfrey, thank you so much for jumping on again. We'll speak to you soon. All the best.
Okay. Good luck to you all. Good luck to you all.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
As most of you know, my work is very heavily independently research based, and I get my information from all over the world. It would help if you press the subscribe button and the little bell next to it, because the more subscribers I have, the more likely it is that international independent research institutes will share their material with me. It's most helpful, and then of course I automatically share it with you. So surprise won't cost you anything. Thank you very much.